Have you ever wondered if wheat is healthy or not? The answer is not so simple, because wheat is not just one food. In fact, there is more to wheat than just being a grain, and whoever controls wheat controls your metabolism. Now, you're probably like the average American who eats 126 pounds of wheat flour every year. This is literally someone's body weight. We're not just talking about bread. In fact, there are so many foods that don't even resemble wheat anymore. And this, by the way, is made of wheat, but it's flourless. It's actually a green tea chocolate brownie. And think about how when you eat wheat, how can it be flourless? Well, today we're going to break down how one wheat-based product can spike your blood sugars, feed fatty liver, make you insulin resistant, while another wheat-based food could help you lower blood sugar, reduce visceral fat, and lose weight, so that you actually can't eat wheat like ancient cultures. So if wheat is so bad, then why do so many ancient cultures who ate wheat thrived? The Middle East had flatbreads. The Mediterranean had rustic breads, porridges, and pasta. Literally, Italy built food traditions around pasta. Northern Africans used couscous and semolina. Chinese cultures, we eat noodles, steamed buns, and dumplings. And then Eastern Europeans, they ate breads and porridges. Were they all diabetic and obese? I think not. So clearly the problem cannot be as simple as wheat is bad. Why did people eat bread for thousands of years without the obesity crisis and the fatty liver crisis that we see today? Wheat fed civilizations, soldiers, farmers, workers, and families long before modern diabetes, fatty liver, and metabolic syndrome have been skyrocketing for the last 30 years. So maybe the real question is not, is wheat bad? The question is, what's changed? Was it the soil? Is it pesticides? Maybe it's glyphosate. Was it genetic modification? Or was it the way it was processed? Maybe it's making flour. Could chemicals be added to flour be harming us? Or maybe it's a sugar, oil, butter, cheese, cream sauces that we add to our wheat foods, or to fluff it up and to bleach it to make it taste good. Or is it the fact that we turned a once ancient grain into thousands of modern food textures that your brain can't resist? Soft bread, crispy crackers, chewy pizza crust, flaky pastries, smooth noodles, puffy cereals, stretchy dough, crunchy snacks. How can one plant do all this? Do you see a pattern? The answer is not one thing. It really is all of it. But the biggest change is this. We actually stopped eating wheat as a whole food and started eating wheat as a delivery system. We are essentially eating Play-Doh. Ancient wheat was not a donut, frosted cereal, cake, crackers made with refined flour, oil, salts, preservatives, and flavorings. Ancient cultures ate wheat in rougher, denser, coarser, fermented, cracked forms. They ate porridges, flatbreads, baked loaves. They were whole grain preparations, foods that we needed to chew. And they weren't eating it alone. They ate it with beans, lentils, vegetables, herbs, soups, and they moved. And that matters because the body responds to diversity, food structure, and movement. So what kind of wheat are you eating? And how are you eating it? What did they do to your wheat? And what is it carrying into your body? Because a wheat berry is not the same as a cracker. A dense whole grain sourdough with seeds is not the same as soft white sourdough. Bulgur with lentils and vegetables is not the same as mac and cheese. And sprouted whole grain breads with hummus and tomatoes is not the same as a grilled ham and cheese white bread sandwich. You are eating the most energy-dense part of the wheat plant, the starch. And then they add sugar and oil. That's also hijacking your metabolism. And it's making you pack on visceral fat, spike your blood sugars, which makes you fat unless you work it off through movement. And that's a massive amount of movement. My name is Dr. Lou, and I've been a physician for almost 30 years. And the point of this video is not to scare you. It's to empower you. So to understand how modern foods hijack your metabolism, you really first need to understand what they did with the wheat grain itself to get this. Before wheat became flour to make these textures, It started as a seed, a whole kernel, which has three parts. The bran, which is the outside layer. Think of it as a protective wall of fiber with minerals and protective plant antioxidants. And inside is the endosperm, the white starch that's coming out in this water. But the most nutrient-dense part of the seed is actually the germ. That contains vitamin E, minerals, healthy fats, and a longevity compound called spermidine that I have in this brownie. But when you buy just plain white wheat flour, this is pure sugar, pure energy. There's no germ or bran. However, it's enriched with synthetic vitamins and minerals such as thiamine, riboflavin, niacin, folic acid, and iron. And that sounds pretty helpful to help prevent extreme vitamin deficiency diseases caused by concentrating starch, such as Wernicke's, encephalopathy, and beriberi. But it does not make refined flour healthy. Isn't it ironic that the food is stripped of its nutrients and then they're artificially put back? Have you wondered why this white flour is white when whole wheat is not? Wheat is naturally brownish, and that's the bran. That's why white flour is white, because it's been stripped down and it's often bleached. And once it becomes fine white powder, food companies can almost do anything to it to make bread soft, stretchy pizza dough, crispy, crunchy crackers, puffy pastries, soft cakes, and cookies. That's a unique power of wheat. Other grains feed you, but wheat has a texture magic because of the protein gluten. This is gluten. It's elastic. It makes wheat incredibly useful for food manufacturing because it's the base of almost every texture people crave. And you know you crave it because you keep eating it. That's why wheat dominates the supermarket. Nearly half the food sold in the supermarket is made out of some type of wheat. It's not one food, but it's thousands in disguise. Walk through any store and wheat is not going to just be in your bread aisle. Go to the snack section, the cereal section, the pasta section. They're all full of wheat options. The USDA Economic Research Service estimates the U.S. per capita wheat flour intake is 126.6 pounds in 1 year. That is flour used in the modern food system, where wheat becomes the base for countless amounts of processed foods. And white flour, this thing is 11% more caloric than if you ate the whole wheat berries. So if you eat wheat berries over the course of a year, if you actually ate that, it'd be 187,800 calories if you absorbed all of it. But you will absorb all of this wheat flour, and that would be 208,600 calories. And you simply eat more white flours because they can create different textures. And the body loves diversity, especially your taste palate. So if you want to eat more food, buy a whole variety of textures, flavors to eat. If you want to curb your appetite, stick to just a few textures and a few foods. This wheat is controlling your metabolism, especially if you don't recognize the ones that are helping you pack fat on more efficiently. Because wheat can be a whole grain, or wheat could be a delivery system. If you get the right wheat, it can deliver fiber, minerals. But if you get the wrong wheat, it delivers starch, butter, oils, creams, sodium, preservatives, and calories, which you barely notice you're eating. It's the same plant, but it's completely different metabolic effect. If ancient cultures ate wheat and were not obese, why are we struggling with it now? And the first answer is processing. Ancient foods were rougher, denser. It made us chew. It helped us to digest our foods more slowly. Modern wheat, softer, finer, faster, and we're snacking on it all day. So a dense whole grain bread makes you chew more. A wheat berry bowl makes you chew more. Bulgur and lentils, they also fill your stomach, so you eat less. But a soft bun, a cracker, a pastry, a cookie makes you hungrier. The more refined and soft the food is, the easier it becomes to eat. And you don't get full. The second answer is, what are we adding to this wheat? Flour is really just ground wheat, but modern flour is treated, enriched, bleached, conditioned, strengthened, preserved, and engineered to perform better in the factories. And one of the most controversial examples is a flour additive called potassium bromate. It's supposed to improve the strength of the dough. It helps bread rise higher. It improves how you bake it, and it's more uniform, it's more fluffy. So in other words, it helps flour behave better for your palate. The FDA still lists potassium bromate as a regulated food additive used as a dough conditioner and flour treating agent, and federal standards define brominated flour as flour with potassium bromate. Now, here's the problem. Potassium bromate is controversial because it's known to be a carcinogen in animal data. So the International Agency of Research in Cancer has classified potassium bromate as a possible carcinogen to humans. It's been banned or restricted in multiple countries, and even while it remains permitted in the US, even though it's regulated. Just a quick note before we continue. I see messages and comments all the time from people who have watched a few of my videos and didn't realize that they weren't subscribed. So if you find value in my videos, can you click the like button and double check that you are subscribed? It's free and it really does help get my message to other people. And if you are subscribed, thank you very much for joining me to change the world. Ancient breads are not made from flour engineered with potassium bromate. This is a dough conditioner. It was not designed to be ultra soft, ultra fluffy, shelf stable, fast rising. And so when we eat the original grains, we're eating rougher, denser, slower foods, simply closer to what our ancient ancestors ate. Now, modern flour and dough products, it's going to have other additives depending on the product, such as azodicarbamide, ascorbic acid, calcium peroxide, enzymes, mono and diglycerides, datum, sodium cerulactylate, and other dough conditioners and emulsifiers. Now, the FDA allows these ingredients under limits, and the baking industry lists them as oxidizing agents, emulsifiers, and enzymes. Now, does that sound like food to you? Now, of course, not all of these additives are the same. For example, ascorbic acid is just simply vitamin C. It is used to strengthen the dough. But these emulsifiers, they not only improve the softness and shelf life, but they're also interacting with your gut microbiome. What are they doing to it? Why are young people getting such high rates of colon cancer? So modern wheat foods are really rarely just flour and water. That would be a hardtack biscuit, the same flour that our Civil War soldiers ate. You've probably never heard of it because it's not so appealing. You'd break your teeth without soaking it. It's also flavorless. But if you add sugar, oils, butter, cream, cheese, sodium, and emulsifiers, preservatives, and flavorings, you've got yourself a multi-trillion-dollar business. And that combination changes everything. White bread with butter is not the same as hardtack or wheat berries with lentils. Pasta with cream sauce is not the same as sea bread or bulgur with vegetables. Pizza crust with cheese and oil is not the same as sprouted grain bread with hummus and tomatoes. The metabolic problem is often not wheat alone. It is wheat plus fat, wheat plus sugar, wheat plus salt, wheat plus low fibers, wheat plus sitting. You're eating wheat all day long on repetition with all your other added ingredients that don't sound like food. That is where insulin resistance enters. Insulin resistance means your body has a hard time responding to insulin after eating things like starchy carbohydrates that turn into simple glucose. Insulin helps move glucose from the blood into cells, especially muscle and liver cells. And when the meal is based on refined starch, but you also add fat and it's low in fiber, and then you're not moving, well, glucose and fat handling become even harder. Your body conserves energy. Then your pancreas needs to produce more insulin. Then the liver stores more fat, and in response to that, your triglycerides rise. Your visceral fat increases. Blood sugar then climbs, and over time, this becomes a pathway towards obesity, fatty liver, diabetes, and high triglycerides, high blood pressure, inflammation, and heart disease, which is the very pathway that causes premature aging.
Hi, friends. I am so thrilled that you want to take charge of your health and take charge of your food. Now, I know nutrition can be complex, but it doesn't have to be. And I'm here to support you in this lifelong journey. So if you point your camera app to this QR code, it'll take you to a link for a free handout that I created just for you. And if you like it, if you want to see other handouts, please go to the link in my show notes, and then you can leave me your feedback on what I could do to help you in your journey. Okay, back to the video now.
And this is why modern wheat is one of the greatest fatty liver vehicles humans ever learned how to use. Not because one wheat berry is dangerous or even one ball of flour. A wheat berry is just a seed. This is just refined starch. But this becomes an edible form, the exact combination that overloads your liver because it's a vehicle to carry sugar, fat, salt, and to induce constant snacking. Think about what wheat foods people actually eat. Pizza, pasta, bread, crackers, cookies, donuts, cakes, pastries, sugary cereals, pancakes, and syrup. What about waffles? It's all made out of one ingredient, this flour, this starch. This is the vehicle, the cargo that damages the metabolism. Let's talk about wheat quality. Now, people ask, does the soil matter? Of course the soil matters because it shapes how the plant grows, the microbes around it, the minerals, the farming system, and the chemicals used. And modern agriculture is built to yield for storage, consistency, and profit. That doesn't automatically mean every modern wheat food is toxic. It does mean wheat quality is not just about calories. Your soil health, your biodiversity matters for the future of sustaining food quality. If the soil is depleted, the farming system relies heavily on chemical inputs. If one crop dominates a landscape, we should be asking, what does this do to our ecosystem and eventually our food system? And then people ask, maybe it's glyphosate. Now, glyphosate is a widely used herbicide, and the debate is pretty complicated, but the International Agency of Research in Cancer classified glyphosate as a possible carcinogen to humans in 2015. Now, the EPA does not agree with that conclusion. So it's classified glyphosate differently based on its review. And the problem is glyphosate is pretty bad for the farmers, pretty bad for the local animals around there. And then you have pesticide exposure, you have environmental toxicity, even the residues, they may be low, but it's still in it. And we're eating this on repeat all the time. We're eating additive residues. So why are we eating so many processed products built on like one crop? Maybe subsidies? Maybe this is why we have chronic medical conditions. Now, glyphosate, like I said, is horrible for farm workers. Exposure is associated with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And glyphosate is also found in your local hardware store because you could spray that in your own yard, folks. Don't do it. It will change your soil microbiome. It will destroy insect habitats, including the monarch butterfly. And then people ask, well, is wheat genetically modified? The wheat industry has modified wheat to be a little bit hardier for the environment, even though it's not considered GMO. Now, the bigger issue really is how modern breeding of wheat or farming or milling or refining and the additives that it puts in to make this ultra processable. That's why if you can stew it, stick to ancient grains like einkorn, emmer, spelled durum, and Corsican wheat. They're harder, more fibrous, less modified, less processed, often eaten as whole berries, porridges, coarse breads, or fermented doughs. Not the soft, white, fluffy stuff that you're seeing today. And let's talk about the chemicals that they add to this flour. It's important because most people, they don't actually eat plain flour. They eat this packaged with other stuff. Now, I had mentioned flours are often enriched with vitamins and iron. Some flours or dough products have been bleached, and they have dough conditioners and preservatives and emulsifiers and other additives, right? And enrichment may or may not be an obesogen. You know, when you add vitamins, it may or may not make the bread more fattening, although there are people who disagree with that and think by enriching all our flour products that we have changed our metabolism and it is driving obesity. I actually disagree with that. I think, though, packaged wheat foods, packages other chemical exposures, other additives from inside or outside that can disrupt your endocrine system. And when they do that, it changes your hormones, your fat cell biology, your lipid metabolism, and your body weight control. Those are called obesogens, right? And when you eat this on repeat, you're getting probably a hefty dose of them. And these obesogens, they are controlling your metabolism. Now, the first obesogenic additive is added sugar. We're not talking about eating a piece of fruit or a sweet potato. I'm talking about that crystalline stuff that you're adding to wheat. So cane sugar, corn syrup, high fructose corn syrup, dextrose, rice syrup, agave honey, or fruit juice concentrate, they're all different names of sugar, added sugar. They turn your bread, your cereal, your yogurt, your snacks, your crackers into metabolic traps. And then we're adding emulsifiers. That's a hidden additive. That includes polysorbate 80, carboxymethylcellulose, cellulose gum, carrageenan, lecithin, mono and disaccharides, datum, sodium cerolactylate, and propylene glycol alginate. These emulsifiers are fancy things to just basically make your food feel better, creamier, fluffier, maybe shelf stable, but your gut lining isn't getting stable. It's a very delicate interface. And when we add these emulsifiers designed to make our food tastier, what is it doing to our mucus barrier that separates your immune system from microbiome that can potentially take it out? Some emulsifiers may alter your gut mucus layer, your gut intestinal permeability, cause inflammations, and potentially even breed bad pathogens to then lead to cancer. So we're eating modern wheat-like foods in obesogenic environments with refined starch, sugar, salt, fat, flavoring, and engineering. We're packaging chemicals and preservatives. We're eating very low fiber, low protein quality, low micronutrients, right? Because why? Because people want to sell this stuff. Tasty, cheap, repeatable, shelf stable. So this environment makes overeating and metabolic disease so much more likely. And that's why packaging matters. Many of these shelf-stable foods are wrapped in plastics, films, liners, and containers. Food packaging can be a source of endocrine-disrupting chemicals such as bisphenols and phthalates, which are among some of the worst endocrine-disrupting offenders. Fresh food doesn't stay fresh and packaged. Now, this doesn't mean a box of crackers is going to ruin your metabolism. This means we need to eat less of those things, those ultra-processed foods. And the more you rely on shelf-stable foods, the more your biology and your metabolism will be hijacked and changed so far from where you're supposed to be. So when people ask, is wheat healthy? The answer depends on which wheat world are you living in. Are you trying to eat and replicate ancient wheat? Or are you eating in the modern wheat world, right? Because ancient wheat, it was a part of a very physical, active lifestyle. People walked and moved, they hiked, they moved their bodies. They didn't eat packaged foods. They did not constantly snack, and they did not have wheat flour that turned into 30 different textures in your grocery store aisle. Wheat was by itself a star food. The Roman gladiators ate wheat. And in the modern wheat world, we have parts and pieces of wheat everywhere, right? White toast for breakfast, crackers for snacks, and then we get more bread for lunch and pretzels in the car and then pasta for dinner, right? Then you got your dessert cookies. It's like never ending. It looks like variety because of the texture, but biologically, it's the same starch from the same grain on repeat again and again. And when one grain takes over your plate and your palate, you're pushing out more nutritious foods that are protective, such as high fiber mushrooms, berries, cruciferous vegetables, potatoes, herbs, spices, nuts, and seeds, colorful fruits. This is why the goal is not to fear wheat, but the goal is to become a smarter wheat eater. If you choose wheat, choose it in a way that gives you control over your metabolism instead of letting wheat control you. So, rule 1 is choose a wheat closer to the whole grain. So the best wheat choices are wheat berries, bulgur, crack wheat, sprouted whole grain bread, and true 100% whole grain products have meaningful fiber. So the closer the food is to original grain, the more structure it tends to keep. But if you have a refined, softened, pulverized form, it most likely will deliver fast starch into your system. Rule 2 is to stop judging wheat by the front of the package, made with whole grains. That doesn't mean anything. The product needs to be intact grains. Multigrains doesn't necessarily mean healthy. Wheat bread does not mean it is actually whole wheat grain. High fiber does not automatically cancel out all the sugars, oil, sodium, and ultra processing the food has. Turn the package around. Look at the first ingredient. If it doesn't say 100% whole grain or sprouted wheat, it's not whole. Then look at the fiber. Make sure it has fiber. Look at added sugar. Make sure it has 1 gram of fiber for every 5 grams of carbohydrates and make the sugar low. The third rule is, what is your wheat carrying? Is your bread carrying butter? That's different than hummus. If your pasta is with cream sauce, that's different than tomato sauce, lentils and mushrooms and spinach. Pizza with cheese is very different from a thin whole grain flatbread pizza with vegetables and beans. And crunchy crackers and oily dips are very different than whole grains with maybe hummus or bean spread, tomatoes, cucumbers, and herbs. Wheat can carry health, or wheat can carry metabolic damage. The wheat, remember, is a vehicle. You choose a cargo. The fourth rule is keep your added fats low when you eat wheat if your goal is to be insulin sensitive, to lose weight, to reverse fatty liver, or to lose your visceral fat. And this is where people often get confused. They think that the only question is carbohydrate. But refined carbohydrate plus fat, that combination, that's what makes wheat foods so easy to overeat. Because, let's face it, when you add butter, cheese, cream, sauces, oils, it just makes everything taste better, right? But those are energy-dense caloric foods. So instead of butter, use hummus. Instead of cream sauces, use tomato-based sauces. Instead of cheese-heavy, do bean-heavy. And instead of like oily garlic bread, put the garlic on, but skip the oil. The fifth rule is eating other soluble fiber to help you out, like blueberries, flax seeds, beans, lentils, chia seeds. They help you process the wheat so much better. And that's why it's important to eat these grains with other foods. So slow down that digestion of the starch. So when you combine a grain with a bean, like bulgur and chickpeas, and then fruits and vegetables, parsley, cucumbers, tomatoes, and lemons, sounds like a wonderful salad. But what you're doing is you're slowing down your metabolism of that wheat starch, that energy-dense food. Because soluble fiber just supports your gut microbiome, and it helps you process all those calories to slow down those glucose surges. The sixth rule of eating wheat is to move after you eat the wheat, at least 2 minutes. We're not doing a punishing workout, just movement. Walk around the kitchen, walk outside, do calf raises, gentle squats, take the stairs, clean your counter, move your muscles. There are glucose sinks. And when you move after eating, your muscles help pull glucose from the bloodstream, that starch that you just ate. That changes how your body handles any starch-containing foods. Food plus sitting is one signal to get fat. Food plus movement is another signal to lose that fat. The seventh rule is don't let your wheat be your only plant. This is a rule that changes everything. If you like to eat toast, have diversity in it, nuts and seeds and other grains. If you like crunchy, eat crunch with a whole bunch of beans and lentils, oats, barley, herbs, spices. They all help your immune system, your gut bacteria, to mitigate the metabolic effects of wheat. You're building an ecosystem. So imagine when you eat wheat in your meals, let's say pasta, eat a variety of other plants from other plant parts that are low in starch, low in fat, and high in fiber. And when you do that, you get completely different metabolic signals. If you eat refined starch, that pushes your blood sugars and your calories and your liver fat in the wrong direction. But if you eat whole grain products with other foods, that promotes satiety, gives you fiber, gut health, reduces your cholesterol and blood sugars, and helps you control your weight. So when ancient cultures ate wheat, they weren't obese. And the lesson is not that all the wheat is harmless. The lesson is that not all the wheat is toxic, because the context of how you're eating the wheat matters. Wheat eaten whole or minimally processed in a physically active person with other foods like legumes, vegetables, herbs, and meal structure is very different from just eating snacks of refined flour packaged with sugar, oil, cream, cheese, salt, and preservatives in a person that's sitting in front of their desk all day. This is why the same wheat products can have opposite effects. And this is why one wheat product can spike blood sugar and another can help you medicate your blood sugar, your cholesterol, and give you a healthy gut microbiome. Now, I made this green tea chocolate brownie with wheat germ and wheat bran because it supports a healthy metabolic environment to reverse fatty liver, reduce visceral fat, improves my fiber intake, my protein intake. And yes, this is processed, but this is not a bunch of starch put together. And when you use wheat ingredients correctly, you actually can improve your metabolism, restore your insulin sensitivity, and increase your fiber intake. Wheat should not be controlling your metabolism. And you have to stop letting the food industry define how wheat affects your body. They want to make it soft, fast, cheap, shelf-stable, addictive, and profitable. But your metabolism needs wheat to be whole, structured, fibrous. And if you understand that the next time you go to the store that you're picking whole wheat foods that could just be as crunchy as your other snack foods and yet have metabolic benefits, then why aren't we doing more of that? And the other question is, how much wheat have you already had in a day? Because if you're eating wheat for breakfast, lunch, dinner, snack, and desserts, that's not variety, folks. That's one food, one grain controlling your whole metabolism. But when you're eating it amongst other foods, your beans, fruits, fiber, movement, and diversity, it is totally a different metabolic signal. So it's really not fearing wheat, and it's not blaming bread as a cause of our healthcare crisis. We're not actually eating real bread. We have changed so much of how we've sourced the grain to processing the grain. And these chemicals, included added sugar, are hijacking our metabolism. And we design our lifestyle around it. And that's how our bodies have been changing. So yes, it's all of it. The soil, the pesticides, the processing, the stripping of the bran and germ. And it's how we've packaged our food. And it's how we continue to eat our food after we take it out of the package. Now, these structures is the very foods that our brain loves. And this grain can show up without us even noticing that it's in our food. So choose your food whole, choose its structure, and keep the fiber in your food. So definitely wheat can be a part of a healthy diet, because if you're feeding your metabolism properly, then it will help you decrease inflammation and reduce all that visceral fat that the processed wheat is making us hold on to. You are in control, but there is a subset of people who absolutely cannot eat wheat. And those are people who have a gluten allergy. And unfortunately, the most common symptom of gluten allergy is no symptom at all. And if you want to learn more about that, watch the next video.